I'm Dr. Kalyan Sundaram, and I'm a member of KGA and also a good friend of Professor V. Ravi. And I'm also a psychiatrist, as most of you may know. First of all, I'd like to thank Mr. Prithviraj, Secretary KGA, and the rest of the committee members for giving this opportunity once again to share the latest information about what's happening in the COVID scene in this country. And more importantly, would like to thank Professor V. Ravi for taking time to come to us again. Most of you may know this is the second appearance for KGA to talk about COVID. Last year, when you had invited him, and we thought he will give us some insight into what is the scenario related to COVID virus and what is the correct information and how do we need to handle that. I'm not going to formally introduce him except to say that he's in the government panel, several patents to his credit, he's in several awards, both nationally and internationally, and a very well known and a very much sought after virologist. He's very, very busy these days, understanding the genomes of the new viruses that are cropping up. When we met last year, we did not realize that we are going to have this so-called second wave as big as this. And what we thought about 10 days ago, we planned about the second wave. By the time we are sitting here today, it looks more like a second tsunami rather than a wave. So I thought this is the right platform. KGA has been very proactive in trying to make people understand what are we dealing with. And there is no better person than Professor V. Ravi. So without any further delay, I invite Ravi to make his presentation. Ravi, please. And there's two things, please. All of you are muted. Any questions will come only in the chat box. And once you put your question in the chat box, at the end of his presentation, I will be moderating the chat boxes because sometimes there are several overlapping questions, and Dr. Ravi will take the questions as many as it's possible. Dr. Ravi, please.
Thank you, Dr. Kalyan Sundaram. It's a pleasure to be back to KGA members, but the time is not very opportune to celebrate. Maybe after the COVID subsides, we can all celebrate. So what I will do is, let me first share my screen. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, Ravi. Yes.
Okay. Sundar reached out to me and said, can we have a small discussion on the second wave? Because I think it has taken everybody by surprise, although not some of us who are in the thick of things. What I will do in the next 20 minutes or 25 minutes is to start with acknowledgements first. Then talk to you a bit of history, facts and myths related to the virus, to its transmission, to its clinical management and clinical manifestations, and the myths related to vaccines, and end with a note on future. I start with acknowledgement because I think first and foremost, acknowledgement goes out to the world's largest unregulated open university called WhatsApp, which has caused enough confusion during the second wave. There are too many pundits and experts out there, and unfortunately no students. So I think this has contributed to mayhem, a lot of anxiety, wrong facts being perpetuated. So I think it's time to take stock and get the correct things across. So I think I would first acknowledge social platforms. Second, Dr. Kalyan Sundaram for having me again. and all my colleagues at NIMHANS, where I worked for so many years, and I continue my work on genomic sequencing for their excellent work they're doing. Moving on to the history, you see a graph here. This graph is more than a century old. Data pertaining to the 1918 pandemic flu. Actually, the origins of the 1918 pandemic flu, the so-called Spanish flu, was in late to 1917. And the first peak you see here of deaths plotted against the various months is in June 2018. It lasted for about 2 months. There was a gap. And again in October, November, and December, there was a huge second wave. There was a gap of almost a year, more than a year. I'm sorry, more than 3 months again, there was a third wave. The reason why I'm showing you this is, it is not that we did not know. Agreed. There it was influenza virus, here it is coronavirus. That this was one of the biggest pandemics in the history of mankind. The corona is the second largest pandemic we are seeing in the history of mankind in modern science and modern medicine. So if somebody tells me that we never expected it, I think it's an excuse. There's a very famous quote, I don't remember whose it is. If you forget history, you're condemned to repeat it. We always knew that there was a second wave. Many of us who are in public health had warned way back at the end of the first wave, in end of November, there will be a second wave. And I stuck my neck out and said it is going to be much bigger than the first wave. And there will be a third wave. Believe me, there will be a third wave, and my prediction is that it is going to be anywhere between October to December of this year. Let us not fool ourselves. We are in for a long haul. Unless we change our behavior, and unless we have our leaders changing their behaviors, let me make it absolutely clear, we are in for very serious trouble. Okay, why do I say we are in for serious trouble? This is the daily count of cases. I don't have to tell this audience that we have been hitting 3 lakh cases every day for almost a week now. You see the graph which is green on the top left. Now that tells you how the first wave behaved. Once we unlocked on June 1st in a phased manner, there was a surge by end of June. It peaked by September in the country, and it subsided by November end. And by January, February, people were celebrating that Corona is dead. They almost put a tombstone and an epitaph saying, "Here lies the coronavirus." So what happened? The second wave started emerging. You can see on the top graph what has happened in March. Early March started surging. From that time, many of us have been bawling out to government saying that this is going to be huge, because 7-day average is something that we use in public health to calculate. And that was astounding at that stage. In the bottom, you can see the various states in India where it is surging now. Doesn't mean the other states there is no second wave. Just wait for tomorrow, and then you will see the second wave exploding in West Bengal, where the testing has been abysmal and elections had taken place, a lot of crowding, and so also many other states. Right now, the brunt, like in the first wave, is borne by Maharashtra, Delhi, followed by Karnataka, Madhya Pradesh, Gujarat, Kerala. The other, Uttar Pradesh has started surging now. Punjab has started. Punjab is already almost near its peak. So It is not that other states will be spared. Remember, India is not one country. India is 30 countries in terms of population. So different states will peak at different times. What have we learned so far from the second wave? We have learned the following things. First, warnings by scientists ignored. I think I should have put it in red fonts. It is not that the policymakers and the politicians were not informed. The recommendations were made and people were warned. But what is more important for a wave to become a tsunami? And right now it is not second wave, it's a tsunami. There are many things that contributed. You should understand that. First and foremost, a large number of small super spreading events in cities. Take Mumbai, it started, and you take Nasik or Amaravati, you take Bangalore, it started with small partying in apartment complexes, hostels, people coming from other states into hostels. These are small super spreading events, one after another, right from February end. Several super spreading events put together ignites a large fire. The biggest contributor, I would say, is lack of COVID appropriate behavior. People were not wearing masks. I don't have actual figures, but all of you have seen in January, February, not more than maximum 30% of the people were wearing masks. Everybody was happy that Corona is behind them and it is dead. Lot of crowding contributed by a large number of events, rallies, elections. I mean, the way we conducted elections, the fervor with which we conducted elections, disregarding human lives, will go down in history as the most pathetic response of this nation. Religious events, 13 lakh people taking dips in a holy river. For what? God only knows. I think God probably told them to take that dip. And from there, I'm sure it has been carried to the nook and corner of this country. What are the stunning things about the second wave? You can see on the right, the curve is extraordinarily steep. It's almost vertical. Somebody once sent me this and said, what do you think? All the other countries were below, way down there in terms of number of cases, and India was shooting up. I said, we'll reach the moon. India will be the first country to reach the moon, with COVID, of course. It's much bigger, which people now want to give an excuse saying it was not anticipated, which is not true. Absolutely no planning. Different states will peak at different times. And I think there was an utter disregard the way systems responded. And it's very, very pathetic. And the health system suffered the most because they were not, nobody expected that we'll have such large number of cases that will require admission. The myths about virus variants and mutants has become a very fashionable term. I never thought when I joined virology 40 years back, common man will talk about variant and mutant. Okay, let me share from our experience and then give you the larger perspective. NIMHANS has sequenced about 150 samples between 21st December and 30th March. Then again, we have sequenced more number of samples from March. I'm dividing this 30th March for the purpose. Now, these samples were obtained from international travelers because that was the guideline, local clusters wherever there were small focused outbreaks, people who had vaccinated and turned positive, and then of course we picked up samples from the routine testing that we get from Bangalore. And what did we find? We found that there are a large number of variants. In fact, we have submitted this manuscript. There are about 34 different lineages that are circulating. The most important ones that have made headlines that most of you are aware is the UK variant, which is what set off sequencing in a big way in India, and that is technically called B.1.1.7. The second red letter one in the bottom panel that you see, that accounts for about 27.5% of the circulating variants that we have seen. Large number of them are from international travelers, but I am afraid that it is now spread into the community as well. B.1.36.29, that is a variant that has been there in Karnataka during lockdown period. We had shown it, but between January and March, it completely took over. You can see the purple bar here. On the top, the code is there, B.1.3629. It has a mutation in one particular portion of the spike protein. It steadily increased till the end of March and became about 20 to 30%. But beginning of March, end of March and beginning of March, this is the end of February. Beginning of March to now, April end, you can see yellow is predominating, and yellow is the Maharashtra double mutant. Now the story is similar across all states. There is a mutant identified in Maharashtra with two important amino acid changes on the spike protein, which has made it spread much faster, and definitely this is a variant to watch out. A large number of people are coming down with it. But let me tell you, variant or no variant, the precautions remain the same. There is this myth going around saying that variants, all this problem is because of variants. Human beings find 1,000 excuses for their lousy behavior. I don't have to tell this to Kalyan Sundaram. He's an expert. First thing to be blamed in the second wave is viruses. Second is virologists. Why virologists? They're not doing enough sequencing. What the hell are you going to do with sequencing? Keep a board on your forehead. I am B.1.6.17, B.1.7. I am UK variant. What are you going to do with these variants? All variants or no variants do not penetrate equally through masks, provided you wear a mask. They do not penetrate. Why are we blaming variants? For everything, tests are missed. PCR tests are not working because of variants. Who told you that? Absolute bunkum. Armchair theories. Everybody has become an expert. I'll tell you these myths later. This, of course, we have been hearing last year also. It speaks of summer, so virus won't spread. I think the facts and figures speak for themselves. Okay, end of March, UK variant and the Maharashtra mutant have started spreading into community. Whole of Delhi and Punjab, the UK variant has become a problem. Whole of Maharashtra and 16 other states, the double mutant has become a problem. Let's go to clinical needs. Severity. There are two WhatsApp professors. One say, as because it's second wave, the wild is milder. There's another group which says, no, it is very severe. Both are wrong. In terms of clinical behavior, the virus is the same. If you're seeing more severe cases, you're seeing 5 times more number of cases compared to the first wave. Severity has not got anything to do with mutants. There's absolutely no evidence. Be very, very clear. The pattern remains the same. 80 to 85% of the people have mild or asymptomatic infection. 10 to 15% of people have moderate infection. 5% of people have severe infection. That spectrum has not aged. No, this time it is more in younger people. Of course, it is more in younger people because last time most of the 45 plus got the infection and bore the brunt. This time around, youngsters are the ones who are running around all over the places, getting into groups, crowds. So they were open. We opened schools, we allowed them to mix with each other, and also people are carrying infection back home. Mind you, 80% of Indian homes are not suited for isolation. You need a single bedroom, well ventilated with attached bathroom. How many people hospitalization? Because of the surge, everybody wants to get into hospital. There is no need. Can you please mute your mics?
Please, others, kindly mute your mic, please.
Because of the huge surge in cases. Because of the huge, they have to get into a hospital so that if they develop moderate or severe disease, they will have access to oxygen and drugs. Fear psychosis. 80 to 90% of people can stay at home. I retired on November 30th. I religiously am doing one thing every day. Mornings at almost 11. I don't take calls who are in home isolation. Just talking to them, counseling them, asking them oxygen concentration, what medicines they are taking. None of them have deteriorated. Not because of me. It is just that they need the correct advice. That's all is required. Remdesivir, quoting some famous trial, the same pundits last year said, oh, it's a miracle drug. Now it's not available, dump it. Remdesivir position has not changed. It is a drug that can be used in a very small window when oxygen saturation falls below 94, moderate illness. If given remdesivir, that person benefits from it. When a person is gasping, breathless, remdesivir does not do anything because there the manifestations are more because the body's immune system has overreacted. Remdesivir can't do anything there. So remdesivir remains supposed to do. It is still effective in moderate people, provided it's given at the right time. All factories shut down production, they scaled down because the first wave was over. By January, most of these companies said, okay, our business is over, let's shift to manufacturing something else. Suddenly you want remdesivir, it takes minimum 4 weeks. You have to get raw material, you have to synthesize the drug by reverse pharmacological techniques, and then you have to get it sterility tested and batch and lot approved by drug control. So overnight you cannot have remdesivir being available. Oxygen. Oxygen, one of the biggest problems with oxygen was absolutely poor planning, and people never expected such a huge surge. So naturally oxygen requirement has come up. Added to that, the panic created by projecting continuously on media lack of oxygen. People sitting in auto rickshaws and cars and taking oxygen. I think it really went out of control. Yes, we thought we had prepared very well for having enough number of oxygenated beds. We are very sorry that our planning was pathetic. So I think these are the myths related to clinical. New strains have made the virus more deadly. No, neither is it made more deadly nor less virulent or less deadly. Older people were at greater risk during the first wave. Younger people and children are now at higher risk. Again, this is a myth. If you really look at the distribution of age, it is the same as last year. Yes, more number of younger people because they represent the larger proportion in the population. So when more number of people are getting infected, it looks as if the people in the younger age are, but they are represented more in the population. So it is equally age distributed, even children are getting affected. This is the biggest myth. Everywhere, everybody is talking. I am surprised that they are telling that the RT-PCR test is not detecting the mutant. Absolute rubbish. All RT-PCR tests used today amplify multiple genes. If a test is based only on spike protein gene, that is where all the mutations are, most mutations are occurring, then one can say that probably the test is not working. But we are not using spike protein. Most of the tests are using other genes in amplification. So this is wrong. Then why is this myth that appeared? That is because people in home isolation, the biggest drawback in the second wave has been absolutely poor monitoring of people who are in home isolation. Everybody in home isolation has to monitor their pulse oximeter, their temperature. If their signs worsen, they have to report to somebody. Youngsters for 4 or 5 days are fine. So they label themselves as I am going to be asymptomatic. Remember, I will underline and repeat to all of you, one fact you should remember, worsening happens in the second week. CT scan, if it is required, it is in the second week. Blood markers of severity, if it is required, it is in the second week. The critical period in COVID infection is between day 5, day 6 to day 12. That is when people will worsen. So they have to be very closely monitored at home. The best way of monitoring is pulse oximeter. The second best way is to do a 6-minute walk test. Take pulse oximeter reading inside your room, walk briskly for 6 minutes, repeat your reading. If the difference is more than 5%, that means your saturation decreased from 97 to 90, that means it's an early indicator. You need to be getting into hospital and you will need oxygen support. If it is within 5%, nothing to worry. That is physiological. After exercise, naturally you will consume more oxygen. But that is an extremely sensitive indicator. Use that and take all the drugs that need to be taken. Doxycycline or azithromycin for people who have cold and cough. Ivermectin is now in the national protocol, 12 milligram for 3 to 5 days. It is not an antiviral. It is an immunomodulator. Some papers say it is useful. Some papers say it is not useful. But the national experts felt it doesn't do any harm, so let it be there. Zinc is required for a good immune response. Vitamin C is required. Vitamin D is required. So those have to be there in your daily routine. All the others are symptomatic. Fever, paracetamol. If you have cough and if you have a running nose, then you can take antihistaminics. Nowadays, people have realized that in the second week, when people are deteriorating, if they cannot get into hospital, they are prescribing oral steroids at home. Remdesivir is a drug that should be given only in a hospital, never in a home setting. I thought I will make that very clear because these are some of the things. Hospitalization is necessary in the second wave. I already clarified. If they're at home and if they are monitored, or self-monitoring is the best, get in touch with the doctor. Right now, the government and the administration is scrambling to set up home isolation teleconsultations, but the numbers are so huge. Example, Bangalore yesterday, 29,000 people detected newly positive. That means 29,000 calls have to be made. If you don't do it within the first 24 hours, another 20,000 will accumulate. So the next, and then this 29,000 of yesterday has to be followed up for at least a week to 10 days. By that time, cumulatively, there will be 1.5 lakh people to whom calls have to be made every day. Don't tell me this was not thought through. Nobody ever thought monitoring home isolation is important. That's the price we are paying now. Well, these are very popular myths that are there. Some of them are hilarious, like 5G mobile networks spread COVID. Temperatures higher than steaming is one big. People think when you inhale steam, it actually kills the virus. And some people, there are other pundits who say, don't steam. From the nose, the steam will carry the virus to the lung. Again, armchair theory. Whether you steam or you don't steam, virus will ultimately go to the lung. If you want to do steaming, please do it. It clears respiratory passages, period. There is no antiviral effect. It may help you to bring out secretions better. Above all, it makes you feel wonderful. Your face clears up, your sweat pores open, and you will look much fresh and more beautiful. Please do steaming. But don't imagine that it is going to help you kill the virus. Let's move on to vaccines. I think there are a number of vaccine myths related to vaccines. This is the last part of my talk. In a few minutes, I'll finish. The vaccines were developed too fast and they are not safe. Absolute nonsense. All vaccines have several phases. A, preclinical toxicity, where it is first tried in small animals and big animals. Small animals are mice and ferrets. Large animals are monkeys. Only if it is safe in all these animals, both in terms of metabolic safety, genetic safety, pregnancy safety in animals, only then it is even permitted to be tried in human beings. Human beings trials are 4 phases. Phase 1, it is in 100 volunteers, meant to measure safety. Phase 2, to ask the question on immunogenicity, meaning is the vaccine producing the correct response. Phase 3 is the actual acid test, where vaccine is given along with an innocuous substance, and then at the end of the trial, usually this is about 25,000 to 50,000 volunteers. 1/3 of them will not receive vaccine but will receive some other material that does not produce any toxicity, like saline or a vitamin injection or anything like that. And then you compare the number of people getting infected in the vaccinated group versus those who are not in the vaccinated group. And that is a measure of efficacy. All this has been done in an express manner. That doesn't mean any phase was compromised. So vaccines are safe. In fact, as a very great philosopher said, to live is to risk dying. So don't believe these anti-vaccine lobbies which say too many side effects. Remember, COVID is a new virus. If you do not get infected, you have to get vaccinated. Otherwise, the virus will catch you. Nobody is immune. Either you should be infected or you should be vaccinated. Vaccines, especially the genetic vaccines, alter your DNA. No. Again, a terrible lie. These genetic vaccines are mRNA vaccines. They stay only in the cytoplasm. They get translated a couple of times and then the host cellular enzymes will destroy the foreign mRNA. Virus vaccines can give you COVID-19. We are not using live attenuated vaccines to say that it has become virulent. Again, this is a lie. It contains egg protein, so people will get allergies. Again, a myth. None of the vaccines contain egg protein. It causes severe side effects. It causes side effects that are classified as mild and severe. 1 in 4 to 1 in 10 will develop mild side effects, such as pain at the site of injection. Even if you prick a needle, you'll get pain. Even if you prick a needle, half the people will get fever. And those are the worried well. Type A personalities will get all sorts of side effects because they want to get side effects. Then you will get myalgia, you will get fatigue, then mild cold. All these are symptoms you will get. Severe side effects are rare, 0.006%. Many of them have been advertised and popularized in the media as blood clots and bleeding disorders and deaths and so on. Let me tell you, more sensation than actual facts. Yes, some of them will develop serious side effects. We don't know who they are. That is a risk that you have to take, but the benefits far outweigh the risks. It makes women infertile. Now, this has been doing the rounds for polio. It is done for measles, for mumps. Now it's doing for COVID. These are anti-vaccine lobbies. And the latest one I did not add there, you should not take vaccines when women have periods because they lose a lot of blood. Their immune system won't respond. I don't know who manufactures such wonderful myths. I would like to meet some of these guys on WhatsApp so that I can manufacture some truths to counter these myths. Anytime you can take. See, the vaccine has not been cleared for children because the trials did not include children. Now, children between 9 and 18 are being included. So in another month or two, it will be cleared. And then probably for 2 to 9 years. It has not been tried out in pregnant women because it was made so fast. They said, okay, we'll do it. They are not the priority group. Elderly are priority group. Similarly, lactating women. Now the CDC advice is very clear. Vaccines are safe. Taking a vaccine during pregnancy or lactation is left to the particular person. Many obstetrics gynecology societies are giving this advice. So these are the various myths about vaccination. What about the road ahead? I'm very fond of this slide. The photograph on the left, I searched and found on the internet. It's a road with many road humps. If, like Indian politicians and administrators, you think there was only one hump, we got over it with some restrictions and we are going to speed. I'm sorry, the road on the left, if you speed in a four-wheeler, your head will hit the ceiling and you will have a ghastly cut on your scalp. If you're in a two-wheeler, you'll be thrown off to the side of the road. You cannot speed over a hump. We are going to have many humps. And we have the steepest hump now called the second wave. The middle picture on the right. But you are going to have many humps. We have to learn to live differently. We cannot proceed at the same speed, giving economic activities as an excuse. Elections do not promote economic activity. Dipping in Kumbh Mela is not economic activity. I know there are some critical economic activities that should go on, and that also where we should follow COVID appropriate behavior. If we don't wear a mask, we are doomed. I am treating 14 people right now. When I say treating, I am counseling 14 people, online friends, many of them doctors who have turned positive after the second wave. Let me make that very important point. Wearing mask, avoiding crowds, maintaining social distance, washing hands is the most important thing you'll have to continue for the next year and a half. Vaccines guarantee protection against severe disease and death. No vaccine, I repeat, no vaccine can prevent infection. It is not designed for that. No vaccine gives you sterilizing immunity. We have to wait for a miracle nasal vaccine that can neutralize virus with antibodies in the nose. That is still under development. All vaccines today, you will get infected to varying degrees depending on the efficacy of the vaccine. But believe me, even after vaccination, you have to continue COVID appropriate behavior. So this is the road ahead. Be very clear. And my greatest fear for the third wave is it is going to be children. simple common sense. You don't need intelligence in public health. The elderly are being immunized. The middle-aged are being immunized. We have opened up today immunization for the younger lot, but we don't have vaccines for children. We want to start schools, and our people will continue their inappropriate behavior, bring it home if they don't go to schools, and give it to children. The virus will always find a susceptible host. History has taught us that. Till it infects the last human being on the earth, or till the last human being on this earth is protected, the virus will continue to circulate. Please remember, protect your children for the next 1 year. And my advice, I started writing to people saying that, to policymakers and administrators, please get ready with pediatric intensive care wards. We have focused a lot on adult intensive care units. We now have to think about pediatric beds. The CDC director, she recently, Rochelle Walensky, said America is going through its 4th wave. Look at Europe. They're all in their 3rd wave, some of them in their 4th wave. America and some of the European countries have immunized more than 50% or close to 50% of the population. They're still having waves. We have hardly immunized 10% of our population. If we sit here and say that we won't have another wave, believe me, Sundar will call me in October, November and say, Ravi, myths and facts about the 3rd wave. The rules are same for everybody for safety. Always wear a mask properly. It should cover your nose, your mouth, and tightly sit over your chin, not hang as a necklace on your. Maintain distance and wash hands. Well, these are the other waves we are talking about. All this time we talked about COVID waves, but there are other waves as well. The first wave was mortality, morbidity. The second one is also similar. Now, the second wave in terms of human life is going to be impact of resource restriction. And then the third wave is we have to learn to interrupt activities. We may have to have mini lockdowns or restricted movements. And of course, throughout from the first wave, the biggest toll it has taken is on mental health. And I am not an expert. Sundar will answer questions on that. In summary, it's a contagious virus. The new mutants are more infectious. They're spreading very quickly. You can get immunity only through infection or vaccination. Better get vaccinated. Don't wait for infection because it's a lottery. You may be in the mild, moderate, or severe group. And I don't like people playing lotteries. And I think we have to remember that the road ahead is bumpy with many speed breakers. So we should alter our lifestyle towards that. Sometimes we might be at home, sometimes we go out. So all of you, please stay safe and stay healthy. Thank you.